I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd take roll for us, please.
Gregory Wolf,
Here.
David Pradaris, Kelly Rast,
Present.
Brad Miller,
Here.
Lindsay Grisey,
Here.
Frederick Starrett,
Here.
Steve McGank is absent, Tim Ork,
Present.
Leslie Hind,
Present.
Craig Connell,
Here.
Andrew Logan,
Present.
Kevin Hogan,
Here.
and David Pradaris. We have quorum.
Right. We'll move on to public comment then. I'm not aware of anyone here from the public. Is anyone?
We don't have anyone on Zoom and no one signed in.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the hybrid statement?
Yes, please.
This meeting is now being recorded in the board hearing room with planning commission members attending in person. There is also an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom participants wishing to speak, please raise your hand. The hand function on the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by name or number listed to join Zoom, and your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and the city and state where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 2 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you have trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphone so that people attending via Zoom can hear you and the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you.
Right. I'm not aware of anything except Jay would like to address us in this public meeting portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Leipzig, the Planning Director. I wanted to point out three documents that one was in your packet that was submitted to us by Karen Brownlee, entitled "A Review of Potential Public Health Impacts Related to Industrial Scale Wind and Solar Energy." And then and that went out in the packet. And then there are three additional documents that were on your dais this evening that were sent to us by Joyce Whittier. That we want to make sure we distributed to you all. One is called Fire Safety Lags Growth in Utility Scale Battery Production, Duke Energy, other officials say. Another one entitled Renewable Energy Batteries, Toxic Time Bombs Delivering Trivial Output. And then the third is Morris Industrial Fire Evacuation Indefinite. And those were given to us by Joyce Whittier. Those are submitted after the due date for the packet to be sent out. So I wanted to make sure that was noted for the record as well. These are on the planning page as well, sir.
We were also given a more than a quarter of energy storage systems have fire detection.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
This is Kelly Rouse. I have a question regarding this, and I don't know if this isn't the proper time to have questions about this type of stuff that gets submitted. What actually, because there is a lot of, since we went through the solar farm stuff all last year, there has been a lot of new data. I even remember asking about, I think there was a conversation with hail damage, but recently the Texas solar farm had over 1,000 acres of hail damage to their solar farms, which they had said that doesn't happen. So all of this new information that is coming forward and stuff, what is planning staff doing with all of those?
Essentially, Commissioner Rash, what staff has done is there again, those documents were assembled when we were preparing the regulations. We are assembling them. When they're sent to us, they're put on our solar portal on our website. So all of that information is there. Any new articles that are submitted or whatever for review could be reviewed by the public. Try to make it as transparent as we can so that people can at least look at that. But we have not received an application, and I assume an application comes forward, then there'll be another kind of renewed effort for some of that material being presented to us as well.
Okay.
But anything that's presented by the public is put on the Planning Commission website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
I guess my question is, why are we being given this information? Is there anything on tonight's agenda or on a future agenda or within our general scope of what we do that this is supposed to inform, or
Commissioner Orrick,
why is this being put?
thank you for the question. These are presented to you just by concerned citizens that wanted the planning commission to be aware, since this was something, was a topic of discussion during the solar regulations review, and just to make you all aware of it, just a public information piece. And the public can submit anything to the planning commission for review to put on that website.
Thank you.
Yes, Kelly Ross. Just to add to that, because I kind of started when we started the whole solar farm, we had, what do you call it, representatives from Virginia that helped counsel on all of it and give their recommendations and stuff. So it was a solid year-long process with discussing the large scale utility farms. It was quite contentious at times too,
Sure.
but the planning commission, for the most part, they put certain restrictions on, but by the time, and then it went up to the Board of County Commissioners, they remanded it back to us with explanation. We sent it back with our rationale, which also matched all the city's rationale and pretty much everybody else's rationale. But the county commissioners, once again, did their own voting of new recommendations and didn't follow what we had recommended when it was remanded. So that's why it's still a point of contentious, because we had set certain stipulations as a planning commission
Mhm.
and they changed them, or they did their own. They didn't take our recommendations. So the public
We're
is still,
allowed to do that, right? I mean,
oh, for sure, they are. But, you know, we had public comment on a regular basis. We even had, you know, the people that were from Virginia that were supposed to be, you know, counseling on us and stuff. They even were like, well, maybe this isn't a good place for, because it was a watershed. It was, so there was a lot of rationale for why we came up with, you know, the recommendations we did, but they
and
still took
my
another.
question was more, is there anything on our horizon that is prompting this submission or that we need to be generally aware of?
Mr. Orrick, Jay Leipzig again. No, at least we
That's all I
received
wanted to
anything.
know.
Yeah, nothing
Thanks.
that has been submitted to us.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff? I believe then we go to, are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that need to be disclosed at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. You all have a copy of the agenda. Does anyone have an addition or deletion from the agenda items, including staff? But okay. Next, approval of minutes of the March 26, 2024 meeting. You all should have those also.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the March 26, 2024 meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we make a roll call to vote on that? Please,
Just have us raise their hand.
just raise our hands, good enough? I'm new at this.
Yes. You just say, all those in favor, raise. your
Okay.
hand, or-
All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All right, the next is the comprehensive plan annual review issue. And we have Jay, are you going to make a report in conjunction with this? Is this part of your director report or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This is I'll give a slight or very brief introduction, then I'll turn it over to Karen Miller, who will go through the report with you. But this item is consistent with the state statute KSA 19-2958E, which requires the planning commission to annually review the comprehensive plan to determine if any portion of it has become obsolete and to report its findings to the Board of County Commissioners. We kind of use this as an annual occurrence or annual event to review some things that were done in the past year, and then give you a quick glance at projects that we're reviewing this next year. So with that, I'll turn. We had a very busy year last year. With that, I'll turn it over to Karen Miller.
Thank you, Karen Miller. And so the purpose of this report is just to list out the reasons why planning staff thinks that the comprehensive plan is still up to date. And so we'll start out with two amendments to the comprehensive plan. Number one is the review and amendment of the New Century Air Center Comprehensive Compatibility Plan and the Executive Airport Comprehensive Compatibility Plan. These were adopted this February by the Board of County Commissioners. And these compatibility plans serve as the official guide for the county to guide airport policy decisions relating to development around the airports. And the primary goal is to determine compatible land uses and to mitigate potential adverse impacts around these two airports that the county owns and operates. These plans were drafted with a very robust public input process, which included the cities surrounding the airports. And also these plans include a new airport safety zone map and land use compatibility criteria. This is a very kind of unique and very good departure from our prior use of the traditional future land use map, which was static. It called out very specific particular land uses in particular areas, but that didn't allow the cities the ability to grow and change their land use plans. And so we stepped back and we thought about, well, what is it that we're really concerned about? And this is land use that the county is reviewing within a mile of their airport boundaries. And this is development going on in the cities, but the county is reviewing it. And we're reviewing it specifically to make sure that these land uses are compatible with the airport, that the people living and owning businesses within this area will be safe, but also that the airport and the public investment in the airports will be protected so that the airport can continue to operate in a way that they feel that they need to. And so this safety zone map was a very much needed update to our comprehensive plan. So these plans serve the dual purpose of protecting the housing and businesses surrounding the airports and also protecting the public interest. So this was a huge project, and we were very excited that it was adopted and updated our comprehensive plan. The second comprehensive plan update, it was in the Northwest area, and it was spurred by the huge annexation by the city of DeSoto. In 2022 and 2023, they annexed about 9,000 acres of the former Army ammunition plant, and they started working on the Ad Astra project. And so it became obvious to the county that we need to look at our future land use map surrounding this annexation. And so the Planning Commission appointed a subcommittee to look at this. Planning staff worked with the subcommittee, and we came up with the recommendation to replace the sunflower plan, which was adopted in about 1999, with simply with our policy area of the rural traditional policy area. And so we were very happy that we did that. And that particular amendment was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners in June of 2023. However, these particular amendments did not address the street network surrounding the Sunflower Army ammunition plant. As you can imagine, that was a very sensitive area. And when the Army took that over in the 1950s or 40s, they truncated all of access onto this 9,000 acres. They didn't want the public driving onto this sensitive plant. So now the task is to kind of reconnect this road system, and not only reconnect this road system within the plant, but the surrounding area, and kind of radiating out towards those other communities like Gardner and Edgerton and Olathe. So moving on to number 3 in our report, we have started, the county has started data collection with the other jurisdictions involved. So this year we are coordinating with affected jurisdictions to collect data and study the area. These are DeSoto, KDOT, Olathe, Gardner, Edgerton, and the study is called the Johnson County Transportation Connection Plan, Southwest Metro Area. This study will review transportation and future land use plans, analyze local roadway systems as they connect with that Army ammunition plant. They'll review current CARNIP designations in the study area and make recommendations for other entities, meaning those cities and the county, transportation plans as appropriate, and explore multimodal opportunities. So this part of the process is just data gathering. This plan will work with all those affected jurisdictions. And then at the end of this plan, each jurisdiction involved, including the county, will get individualized recommendations for their own transportation plans. And so at the end of this study, and they're estimating completion by the winter of 2025. So this is going to be a very extended study. Then the Johnson County will utilize the recommendations to study proposed modifications to CARNIP. After the study has developed recommendations, the county will seek input from the Planning Commission, zoning boards, public, and eventually approval by the Board of County Commissioners. So this CARNIP update process will begin at a future date following the completion of this study. And as I mentioned, I just want to emphasize, we're thinking winter of 2025. And at that point, the county will receive those recommendations, and then we'll start our deliberations and our public hearing process. And then part 4 of staff's compilation is a summary of the recent comprehensive plan updates. We talked about the very recent comp plan updates, but we, starting in 2015, we looked at the fringe areas. We did a pretty extensive update in the urban fringe areas of our future land use map. In 2022, we looked at utility scale solar facilities. Oh, I skipped 2019. We looked at the idea of piano key lots and how we could use piano key lots with our zoning regulations, and how we can make those work going forward into the future. And then we did the 2023 Sunflower Army ammunition plan update and the 2024 airport safety zone map update. And then moving ahead, what we're now working on is updates to our zoning regulations. So the comprehensive plan and the zoning regulations, they're intertwined. The comprehensive plan sets the policy for land use decisions, and then the zoning regulations take that policy and they implement the policy. So our zoning regulations were adopted in 1994, and they're pretty outdated. We've been updating as we've been going along, but it's just time. There's some uses in our zoning regulations that people really don't use anymore. There's uses that our zoning regulations don't even consider, like solar and things like that. So it's time to do a big, basically an overhaul that looks at everything. And in 2022, we hired a consultant to do an audit of our zoning regulations and give us a good summary of what we need to look at, where we need to go with our zoning regulations. And so then planning staff has put out a request for proposals. We just submitted that. We expect that process to close in May 8th. And at that point, we'll have received all of these proposals, and planning staff and the Board of County Commissioners will start the process of selecting a consultant to help planning staff and the Planning Commission go forward with revising our zoning regulations. And then as we've been discussing with the Planning Commission, at the point that a consultant is selected, we expect a subcommittee to be appointed consisting of planning commissioners and zoning board members to work with the consultant and planning staff and to create this updated zoning regulations. So one thing I'd like to point out is that we are thinking that this RFP process will be completed, is it winter? We're thinking winter of next year. And so at that point, we'll be able to start working with the Planning Commission more directly. And then once the zoning regulations are completed, we're thinking that perhaps there will be some comprehensive plan updates. That's a possibility. And so number 6, we put together the annexations that have occurred in the past year in 2023. Like you'll notice that Lexington Township has that final almost 3,000 acre annexation of the former Army ammunition plant. And then there's a chart on the next page, on page 5 of the 2022 annexations, just for comparison. You'll notice that the majority of that former Army ammunition plant annexation of about 6,500 acres is listed. And then the next page on page 6 shows graphically all of those annexations in 2023. So basically, as time moves forward, the unincorporated part of the county, we're losing land area, sometimes gradually, sometimes with big events like the Sunflower annexation. And then also we're becoming slightly more dense in that area that we're attaining by the approval of plats. So with that, I'll point out our planning staff's recommendation on page 7 that we recommend forwarding this plan review to the Board of County Commissioners with the finding that the comprehensive plan remains current and is not obsolete, particularly the plan's recommended goals, policy, and action steps. And if anybody's interested, there's also a suggested motion on that page.
Any questions, Chairman Starrett? Any questions? Very good report. Thank you.
This, I have a question,
oh.
or, well, I have kind of a statement. So Kelly Rast, last year when this came up, the board was like a little confused, like, okay, so we're passing this, we've never seen it, like the comprehensive plan. Remember when we had that conversation, we were trying to understand that, and it was kind of like, well, it's just an administrative thing, you know, because we hadn't even really gone through any of it. And since Commissioner Grisey and I are kind of the only two that are still on the board, she can also might speak to this. One of the things that the commissioners was really important to them last year was to discuss the subdivisions and the zoning board regulations, or zoning and subdivision regulations. And I feel like had that been on the agenda, and that was something that was very important to the commissioners, and we submitted what our requests were and stuff like that. And part of the reason I feel like it's important, because I feel like it could have defined a lot of things that took place with CUPs that came down the road. So I still have a hard time with this whole, and now we're saying it's still not going to start until next year, 2025, of addressing the subdivision and regulations. Because we've had this conversation before too.
Mr. Ross, Jay Leipzig, I can give you somewhat of an explanation. This document is really designed, this is to show kind of the key accomplishments from last year. You're right about, there was some confusion on the subdivision regulations audit, which was the Mark White report. That was what there was some confusion on that document. And then at that time, we said we were kind of working on our subdivision regulations on that update. We wanted to wait strategically until we had finished the airport compatibility plans. And those were just finished up earlier this year. So that's why I wanted to make sure we had that piece of it completed, because that's a comp plan update for both of those documents. And then the subdivision regulations has always been kind of a long-term effort. You mentioned, some of the things like, for example, clarifying some of the CUP requirements, and that will all be part of that. There's some very critical things in that document that we need to amend so it's consistent with state law and federal law. For example, regulating signs and our sign regulations are need to be updated. So it kind of runs the gamut, a variety of those things, but that's why it was delayed. We wanted to make sure we had the airport compatibility plans finished first and get that completed and approved. And we were delayed a little bit. I think part of it was just we had anticipated starting that immediately after the pandemic, and that was delayed. Then our funding was delayed, so we had to kind of moving that back a little bit.
And Commissioner Rast, I understand that, but I think what I have a hard time with is we're basically saying that it's updated, the comprehensive plan is updated, it's good to go. And like last year, it was like, it's just an administrative thing. Don't really think that hard into it, whatever. But again, these subdivision regulations are crucially important. And like Ms. Miller said, they're really outdated. And so it seems funny to be passing something that we're all agreeing to is outdated, needs to be addressed. And we're still saying we're not going to address it for another year, when last year, this honestly was what the commissioners wanted to address first and foremost. And we never got a chance to do it.
Well, Commissioner Rouse, the item that, this is the subdivision regulations that what we're talking about in the future. These are what we're talking about tonight in this report are just the comp plan amendments. You have to update. We knew that there were significant problems with the airport plan, so we wanted to get those taken care of first. But there's the subdivision regulations and there's the comp plan. And so the comp plan, yes, that needs to be updated, needs to be, and there's some additional things we're doing, like Karen had just talked about. We passed the land use update in the northwest part of the county. The next step of that is also working on a broadband plan. So that's kind of these things are continually moving and evolving. But that's really the thought there. It's not I guess administrative. It's like we certainly want to look at it, but we knew even 3 years ago that there were some major issues that we wanted to update on our comp plan for the, specifically for the airports that needed to be updated. And then for the next focus being on the subdivision regulations. I don't know if that helps, if that gives you some clarity in terms of what staff was thinking anyway.
So this is Commissioner Wolf. I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that the rural comprehensive plan and the subdivision regulations are two separate things?
Yes, good way to think about it, and Karen talked a little bit about this, the comprehensive plan is really the umbrella document. That's the vision or the dream of what you want to accomplish. And then the subdivision regulations are how you're going to get there. In other words, those are the tools that you use to activate the dream of what the comp plan is.
Commissioner Rath, but they are under that umbrella. It's part of the comprehensive plan,
No,
isn't it?
No.
they're separate documents.
And so
Entirely
the
separate.
state statute requires us each year to basically take a pause, look at our comprehensive
Mhm.
plan and deem, is it still up to date or is it obsolete? And really, if you go to chapter 2 of, which is the land use plan within the comp plan, those are very basic, very good land use principles that we talk
Okay,
about.
that's that book, Kelly Ross, that's that book we have that I spent an entire weekend
Yeah.
reading through, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
And
don't feel like it's
so
updated.
they're related. The comp plan is related to the zoning and subdivision regulations, but we're not charged by the state statute to review the zoning regs every year. It's the comprehensive plan, and basically it's asking, is your vision generally for your land uses going forward, is that up to date? And generally, yes, it is, but we do acknowledge that we need to work on our zoning and subdivision regulations. And at that point, when we're done looking at that, and we want to look at those comprehensively now, you've mentioned some specific things we'll be working on, but at this point, it was adopted in, 94. It's time just to redo everything. We will comprehensively look at those specific issues for the zoning regulations. And then perhaps it'll be, after that, it's time to look at the comp plan.
Mr. Rath, one thing I was going to mention as well, and I usually bring a copy of both books with me. There's a copy of the comprehensive plan there, but yeah, the subdivision regulations is a completely different document that is approved by a separate resolution by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, yeah, I get that. I understand, Kelly Ross, but they really overlap a lot with the land uses. One dictates the land uses and then the comp plan, because if you read that, there is a lot of references to it. So I guess that's we're splitting hairs. I understand they're two separate books, but when you read them, one relies on the other and they refer back and forth to each other. So if one is outdated, one may speculate the other one's outdated, but it's fine. I'll drop it because it's just
The
government.
further clarification, Commissioner, and your argument is very good. I mean, that's kind of we've talked about that internally as well. Which do you update first? And the general rule of thumb is you updating the comprehensive plan first, and then doing the subdivision regulations. As Karen had mentioned, in our comprehensive plan, in terms of rural policy and land use policy, is consistent. The principles still apply. What is needed, which are in the subdivision regulations, are more of the zoning classifications, some of those details associated with the various land use. That's what really, in my opinion, that's more, critical in terms of being updated, or some of those things, just because there's some legal implications when those are not completed. That helps. So,
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission has completed its 2024 annual review of the Rural Comprehensive Plan and determined that it remains current and is not obsolete, particularly the plan's recommended goals, policies, and action steps. And I move to forward these findings to the Board of County Commissioners.
For a second? Second. Who's? Kevin? Okay.
Just got to call the roll to vote.
Yes, now.
Oh,
do
this
a
one we
roll
have to
call.
vote on.
All those in
right.
favor, raise your hand if you want.
You want to do the hands?
Sure.
All right. All in favor? Show of hands. I don't think we have to do opposed.
I'm opposed.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
get my questions asked, so
Oh.
before we had a nominate or a vote.
Moving on then to the director's report. Jay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I've already covered a couple of things I wanted to point out. Karen referenced the updates to our land use compatibility plans. These are what the final copies look like. That'll be part of the amendment to our subdivision regulations. So I'm very pleased with how that turned out in terms of a very robust citizen participation process in terms of getting the information out to the public, as well as working with a consultant and staff and the rewriting and editing of that document. So I'd like to follow something very similar in our subdivision regulation process as that is developed. It's just a little, we talked about the RFP date it's the responses are due back on May the 8th. We're going to work with a consultant to kind of fine tune that process. And I anticipate will not be in May, but probably in June, having someone before this body as well as kind of a kickoff and introduction to that process and what that might look like. So certainly much more to come on that as we move forward. And we'll look at strategizing in terms of which elements of it we're going to update first and kind of putting together a long-term schedule. So we'll have that for you here in the next few months. The other item I wanted to note is the Board of Zoning Appeals reorganization. As you know, we've been working with our legal team in updating our bylaws for the West Consolidated Zoning Board, as well as the East Consolidated Zoning Board and the Planning Commission. The next step is the Board of Zoning Appeals. We did present a reorganizing resolution before the Board of County Commissioners last month. We are in the process now of taking appointments for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we may have a possible meeting scheduled, I believe, in mid-June. We have a case that's coming up. That, as you know, that board meets as needed, and so I think we will have a case coming up here in June. So we're trying to get that completed as quickly as we can. The other comment I wanted to make is, last time at our previous meeting, we had an update from the City of Overland Park on their framework OP comprehensive plan. And that item was presented before the Planning Commission last month as well. And so they're moving forward with an approval. That's been a long process for them as well. But I did want to point out that we mentioned that the safety zones based on land use characteristics in our airport compatibility plans. The City of Overland Park has done something very similar with their land use update. They have land use characteristics as part of their overall comprehensive plan criteria. It's a little different. It sounds somewhat similar, but it's kind of a different approach. It's very similar to what we've done with the safety zones. Rather than approving a land use, it's based on the characteristics of that land use. So if the land use around the area should change, the city is more able to accommodate that and adapt as they need to. And so I think moving forward, it seems to be, it's kind of a best practice in land use planning, and it seems like many cities and obviously the county is kind of moving in that direction as well. That way, if a land use or zoning classification should change, that plan isn't completely obsolete. And so it just gives some additional flexibility on that end. I did want to point that out. The last item I have is we recently, the planning staff just recently attended the National American Planning Association conference in Minneapolis. I was not able to attend, but Karen and Sean both attended. And I've asked Sean to say just a couple words about it, but I wanted to mention we do have funds in our budget for next year to attend the conference. if a couple of the planning commissioners would be interested in attending that. I believe it's in Denver, Colorado, next year. It's usually in April. I don't know the exact dates yet, but it's usually mid-April for that conference. And it's a great experience. There's different tracks for planning staff as well as planning commissioners. And so I think you all would find something that you'd benefit from if you haven't attended one before. But it's a chance just to interact and meet people from all over the country and all over the world in some cases. But with that, I'll ask Sean to say a couple words.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Sean Penley, planning staff. So yeah, the American Planning Association Conference in Minneapolis was very informative. As Jay mentioned, Karen and I went. There were actually 4 of the planners from our department that were able to go this year. And the sessions, it's always a good opportunity for us to have our professional development, our continuing education credits for anyone that's American Institute certified planners, but even just general planning staff, and then any board member, volunteer, planning commissioner, zoning board member would be, I think, beneficial for some of those sessions. This year, there's been a heavy emphasis on housing initiatives and real estate and law. You know, we try to get certain credits for some of our sessions with law credits and ethics. And I was able to get all of my required certification credits, but there were some really interesting sessions this year, I thought, on real estate and law classes, our law sessions. And then I tried to attend some classes I thought would be helpful for things that are going to be coming up for our staff, such as zoning regulations, updates, and anything dealing with solar. They actually did have sessions on large scale solar, utility scale solar. But one of the most interesting sessions I attended was it was a session that was presented by 2 planners from Colorado. They're from Boulder County, Colorado, and it was a planning for agricultural uses session. And that was very interesting. I thought, I didn't expect Boulder County to have such an emphasis on agricultural uses, but it's a lot like Johnson County in that it's a rapidly growing county in the state of Colorado, but there's a heavy emphasis on trying to preserve the agricultural uses. And it was interesting to look at how Colorado law differs from Kansas law in terms of agricultural uses. They can definitely plan for agricultural uses in Colorado and set aside certain restrictions and regulations. In the state of Kansas, and they talked about how there's definitely a difference from state to state. Kansas, it's a little bit different how we approach it. Generally, agricultural uses in the state of Kansas is protected. So there's not many specific regulations on types of agricultural uses, but it was still very informative to see how they plan for it. And there was also really good questions on that session asking about solar uses in the county and how they deal with that in comparison to their agricultural regulations. So that's just an example of some of the types of sessions. It's, you know, like Jay said, it's a national conference, so it's really good to get perspectives from different areas of the country and especially Midwest. I try to attend a lot of the sessions, and being in Minneapolis, there was an emphasis and a lot of similarities, I think, between Minnesota planning and what we see here in Kansas. So for future sessions, I would definitely recommend whether it be the national conference or even there's a KC Metro American Planning Association chapter that they try to have local conferences in the spring and fall. This year, the spring symposium, I think, was canceled, but there may still be a fall session. So if that comes up and there is a local conference for the local chapter, we'll certainly let everyone know about that as well. So there should be opportunities for additional training for that. So it's very good, good training and something I'd recommend for future information for the board.
The last item I was going to mention is the Mid-America Regional Council also has periodic trainings for planning commission members. And they are due, I had heard at a meeting earlier this week where they're coming out with a schedule here in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll have that. We'll send that out to you when we have it. But those are great training sessions, and they're usually free. And they can accommodate them either in person or through Zoom. So I would encourage you to do that if you're able to, but I'll send out a schedule for those items as well. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Right. Chairman Starrett, next is old business, new business. Is there any There are- there
Mr.
is.
Chairman, yes, thank you. Sean Penley, planning staff. I do have one final announcement. I was asked by Melissa Colasanto, our administrative assistant, to make sure that all of the planning commissioners have submitted an updated application, a board application. So if you haven't received this, please let us know. We'll send that to you. We need to have those submitted by this Friday, April 26th. So if you don't have that, we could send out a reminder for that, but we just need you to fill out your board application and submit that to Melissa Colasanto.
Kelly Ross, I did both zoning board and planning commission on one. Will that work? I think I did that last year.
Yeah, I think that should work. We could just make a copy of that. I think that is okay. Yes.
I mean, I submitted it, she has it or whatever, and I just put both boards on there.
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe that that will work. If
Okay.
it doesn't, you
We'll,
probably will have known already. So.
Okay.
we'll let you know. We
Thank
could,
you.
we could confirm that too when we check on
Okay.
applications to double check that.
I'm old fashioned. I mailed mine in, this Commissioner Sterrett.
That's great.
And so I'm assuming you got it, but
I believe so. We'll let any of the board members know who, if we haven't received, we'll send an email to you.
excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
New, I don't know if that's old business. That's kind of old business. New business. Is there any new business? Well, I think we're about to put a wrap on it. The next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting is Tuesday, May 28th at 5:45. And unless anyone else has anything for the good of the order? Seeing no one, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Kelly Ross, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? If the opposed.